Once again, we are back on Airborne Swordsky Tea Talk Train of Thought with a series of an episode with Mr. Pankit Desai, co-founder and CEO of SEQURETEK. We have seen interesting journey of SEQURETEK in span of 5 years, where they have grown. Compounded growth was around about 50% over the 5 years, and they've got a various recognitions as far as from the government, startups, and from the media also. And we have also taken up the challenges which across they have faced as far as SEQURETEK, which is concerned, the kind of solutions what they're giving to their customers. Now, in this episode, we are going to discuss in terms of the advice for the startups. Many times, it so happen in most of the at the B schools, also the engineering levels, we talk in terms of a startup. Now, what advice you'll have for first for the startup, for the freshers, like how they should go with an ideas like?
It is never too early to start a company. So if you have a idea, if you have a vision, if you believe that it is executable, you should go for it. In fact, earlier the better, in my opinion, because you have the energy and you have the support ecosystem to go after that, and more importantly, you can fail if it all, God forbid, if that situation comes, you still have the mental, physical and financial ecosystem to back you. The only downside, if it all was there, is that sometimes not having any experience whatsoever, you may end up making some basic errors in going after starting a business, right? And if you can get a good support ecosystem of an incubator or an accelerator that supplements your idea with some of the hygiene factors that a business needs to have, if that support ecosystem is there, then I would encourage the individuals to go for that journey. As I said, earlier the better.
Correct. And many a times if you see the entrepreneur who are struggling to find a gap as for startup which are concerned, so what are your advice for them?
So the best funding is the customer funding.
Yeah.
Right. It is. I mentioned earlier also in the previous episode that there seems to be a race to raise money.
Yeah.
And it seems like raising money is a victory.
Yeah.
Whereas raising money is a stepping stone in the process to a victory. So most entrepreneurs feel like fundraise is the end goal, which to me takes you down a path where you are not building successful and sustainable businesses. As they say, you do the right thing, the money will follow. You can't be following the money. It's an often used cliche.
Correct.
But I will again reiterate, if you are starting a business, if you have an idea, figure out a customer who's going to pay for it. If you cannot get a customer to pay for the idea, do not expect an investor to pay for it.
Only if you identify the right kind of customers, like you can pay for an idea, go for it. Like,
yeah. So get someone to pay for it. I mean, we are not. None of us are doing fundamental research, right? Where you need money to carry out basic physical, philosophical research. You are building incremental products. You're doing something that has a fairly quick implementation usage. So if you can have a minimum viable product funded by, and as always the case, it's you and your friends and family who will be your first set of investors any which way. Get them to fund it so that you have a minimum viable product that you can get a customer to sign up. If a customer cuts the check, a good chance that the investor will cut the check, and not vice versa.
Correct. So we need to do a first the suggestion like they should start, charities should start from home, like self-funding, and then I think if the idea is scalable and if the customers are there, then they should go ahead with as far as the startup or any new idea which comes
Absolutely.
in.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, I think at the initial stage, what are the challenges like normally average startups they face like?
So the biggest thing is in this business is called infant mortality, right? So you have, so statistically it says I think 18 months, most startups, 95% of them shut in the first 18 months. And it's okay. because you don't want to be burning too much money behind something that is not likely to succeed. So as I say, you do want to succeed early, fail early, right? So you don't have to spend years before you realize it's not a viable idea.
Correct.
Right? So the question then for an entrepreneur is that, am I reading the signs good enough to make a decision? Sometimes we get wedded to our ideas and we really fall in love with it, and we don't want to accept that it's not going to be accepted by the market for whatever reasons. It may be the best idea, but it may be too early, too late, not relevant, people don't like it, whatever it might be. And we see enough cases of companies that have just imploded, even though they are backed by some of the best investors and the best entrepreneurs coming together. Not every idea makes it to the cut, but realize early, and then be ready to accept a stopgap defeat to go on to do something new, right? And there is no embarrassment or shame in accepting that that idea did not work. It's okay. You as an individual are a far more richer individual at the end of that experience for the second idea versus when you were the first idea. So if I'm an investor, and if an entrepreneur comes to me and says, hey, I did one startup, it failed miserably, I lost all the money, I'm starting again and I had this idea, I'm seeing this traction, I would rather back him versus someone who has not failed, because that person now has understood what not to do. Because in a startup, the biggest issue that is that you want to do everything, because every idea seems like a great idea, and you end up burning the limited resources that you will have. So you rather have someone who has understood the pain of not being successful, because I know second time around you are going to make it doubly, triply sure that you're not going to fail again.
I think they should not start from a failure, like let them fail and then start again. Like
That's okay.
Many times what we have seen, startup, they come with an idea is good, like many times it can so happen the idea might be good, but they are not clear about how to go ahead with the funding. So in a layman way, like, if you can tell for the TikTok audience, like how they should approach for an funding, like.
As I said, customer first, money has to be your money. Very rarely now it has changed over the last few years where you can go to an incubator. So there are colleges that have an in-house
incubation cell is there.
That's a great opportunity if you're a student listening to this program, and if your college or university happens to have an incubator, you can go there. They may not be able to give you money, but they can give you a lot of other things. They can give you access to infrastructure, space, softwares, some support skill sets, finance, bunch of other things that they give. And if you and your friends and classmates are coming together, then all of you can put your sweat equity as the equity, in the sense that you guys are coming together and building the product. Because your technologies, you can build the product, and incubator can help you with the rest of the infrastructure. Once a product is built, then the next question comes is how do you take it to market? Separate issue also. That's one approach, right? So you have an incubator that you work with. If your college or university doesn't have an incubator, a lot of cities have this incubator program, and they are encouraging startups to come into different cities, and they want them to set up base there because they want to be known as a startup ecosystem. Find a city that is nearest to you and see if you can be part of that ecosystem. Third, there are government programs, there are private programs which are looking for ideas you could potentially pitch to them. But having said that, all of these, if at all they will give you money, they'll give you very, very little money. Most of them will expect you to put your sweat, basically your skill set, to bear to build a product, right? That's unfortunate nature of the beast as far as India is concerned. International market, a lot of these where they will write a check on just an idea, but even that is few and far between. More often than not, you will have to go through the grind of using your own skill set to build a product, getting the incubator to create a support ecosystem around you, and then from then on, go through a structured fundraising program.
Correct. I think it's all this, if you follow this design thinking process, like, and the ideas which are there, I'm sure most of the MBA schools, they're having an incubation cell, like, and if you can make a best utilization of that incubation cell, maybe in a span of 1 year or so, if you can think in terms of an scalability, I think then down the line you can really look out for an investor to invest in, like, for your ideas, and if it is scalability as such. So it's a what, sir?
Yes, so one more thing. If you are part of a college as a good alumni network, your your classmates had passed out a few years before, I'm sure your college will be able to put you in touch with those successful alumni as well. So again, if you have an incubator program and if you have a good alumni network, you can try and figure out to potentially use that network to a good use to yourself.
Correct. Also, I think rightly said by, like, we talk in terms of, yes, the alumni network, if it is pretty strong in the colleges, can help in terms of if the incubation cells which are set will help the students for their ideas to take it further. Like, so it's a great insight to what you have given for a young entrepreneur who would like to have their startup, and also, like, you have sounded like what they should do and what they should not do.
Sure.
So that's a great insight to what you have given. And sir, how do you challenge yourself?
So, as I mentioned earlier, I don't like status quo.
Mm-hmm.
That is not something that I am being raised to do my entire corporate life.
Mm-hmm.
And now with SEQURETEK. And I had a boss who had told me long time back, since I was in sales, he said, you're only as good as your last quarter. By which I mean is that you might have a brilliant one quarter where you beat your numbers, but 1st April, 31st March you were a winner. 1st April you start from zero. You start all over again, right? And that's the mentality with which you have to come to work every day, because what has happened is done. Right? Good, bad or ugly, right? It need not be just a victory. It could be a really, really bad day. You lost a deal, you lost a customer. A bunch of things can go wrong in a business. You got to wake up next day and start that day fresh, with a fresh mindset, and think what I'm going to do today and what I'm going to achieve today, right? So that's one fundamental thing that I've preached myself, that it doesn't impact me whatever happened yesterday. Second, I've done, as I said, I've kept my office and personal life separate, so I don't bring office to home. I mean, whatever happens there, I don't want to bring either the euphoria or the downsides back home, right? So whichever way it works, that's how it is, right? How do I challenge myself? I basically, as I said, I'm fairly well read on current affairs and contextualizing how the current affairs impacts me. I want to make sure that none of that becomes a headwind for my business, for my life, and continue to make sure that those inputs allow me to do something that can safeguard or create a moat around my existing business, and also create a leapfrog for me as for times to come. So let's say when we started, while we knew we had to go international, we were not sure when, but as soon as we raised our first round of funding, we started putting the seeds. Okay, we are doing very well in India, but that's not going to be enough. Let's look at international markets. Where do we go? Which country to start? What? We cracked one industry from a business perspective. Okay, let's see how we can crack something else. Can this be transferable? Hey, by the way, we had these products. Can we look at something else? And not everything succeeded. A lot of it failed and failed miserably. Even our entry to US, we literally failed for the first 2 years. There's hardly anything that we did of worth of notice in the first 2 years of our existence in North America. So we spent a lot of money, but we learned a lot. We didn't give up. And that's how we got the business to what it is today.
Great. I think that's what the strong entrepreneurs, that's a reason, like, T-Talk platform is a platform where the experts like Mr. Pankit Desai comes and shares their experience, their best practices which are there, so the target audience gets a meaningful learning out of it. It was an exciting journey what we had with Mr. Pankit Desai, co-founder and CEO of SEQURETEK. We had 5 episodes with Sir. I'm sure, like, the T-Talk audience should go through all the 5 episodes. Will give a great insights as how one should navigate as for the journey which are concerned, how to cope up with those challenges, and how to be more focused as for your career which is concerned. So thanks a lot for being part of this Tea Talk show and sparing your valuable time.
Thank you so much.
And wish you all the best and all the further success as far as SEQURETEK which is concerned. And I'm sure it's going to go a long mile. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Pleasure.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.